The sleepy Missouri hamlet of Cedar Ridge was rocked by a nightmare that would reverberate through its streets for decades on a bright summer morning in 1981. As her three identical 4-year-old triplets played in the backyard, Patricia Landry, a young single mother, said them farewell. She spent only a few minutes inside. The yard was quiet when she got back. The swing set continued to wobble. The boys had left. Not a single footprint, not a scream, not a trace. One of the most perplexing missing people cases in American history resulted from this. Police in the area conducted a thorough search. The woods were searched by volunteers. The story was taken up by national news. However, the triplets appeared to have disappeared. The case was abandoned. Despite being heartbroken and held accountable by many, Patricia never gave up. She didn't touch their bedroom. She left the porch light on and cooked 3 cakes on each birthday. Decades went by, until Patricia received enigmatic mail from a little Oregon town 30 years later, and what was inside would completely change everything. That day, what did she discover? And during all these years, who had been hiding things? Stay tuned, because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. There are many unexpected turns, heartbreaks, and a shocking revelation in this tale. You won't believe how this mystery is solved if you watch it through to the finish. The party that triggered a 30-year-old flashback. At the Rodriguez family's backyard birthday celebration, Evie Marlowe made an effort to remain present and smiled pleasantly despite the scorching Texas sun. But her fragile sense of tranquility was shattered by a single, unannounced visitor, a young boy wearing green checkered overalls. She was struck with recollections of her missing triplet boys by the hauntingly familiar clothing. She walked blindly toward the lad, her fingers grazing his shoulder as though she were reaching for a phantom. The toddler was frightened by her response, which also caused uneasy tension to spread among the gathering. Old scars reopened as neighbors intervened to diffuse the conflict. The Marlowe triplets, Lucas, Noah, and Gabriel, who disappeared in 1981, were remembered by all. For the Marlowes, it was more than simply a personal loss. It was heartbreaking for the entire community. The boys' bewildered father was informed of the unpleasant reality by the party's host, Mrs. Rodriguez. Even after 30 years, the story continued to haunt those who had experienced it. Embarrassed and shaken, Evie and her husband Walter went back home, but she couldn't let go of anything in her heart. She needed to review the pictures to be sure her thoughts weren't deceiving her. From the attic, Walter found the dusty old box that had been undisturbed for decades. Inside were schoolwork, toys, matching plush bears, and, last but not least, the leather-bound photo album that contained their final memories. Evie and Walter leaned in as soon as they discovered the picture. The triplets, wearing those identical green overalls with yellow straps, were there. However, the more they looked, the more they understood that the boys' attire from the party didn't match exactly. It was an odd hue of green. The pattern of checks was finer. The curve of the yellow straps was different. Guilt blended with relief. It was merely a coincidence that Evie had not seen a ghost. As the tension started to subside, Evie's attention was drawn to another aspect of the picture. There was a car parked across the street, but it wasn't just any automobile. The Cadillac was reddish-brown. And it wasn't just any Cadillac. Their son Lucas had loved it. The same car that belonged to Mr. Howard Fielding, their cherished neighbor and instructor. Evie was astounded by the detail. However, something wasn't quite right. Before the lads vanished, Mr. Fielding had already left town. His goodbye celebration had been attended by all. How, therefore, could a picture taken on the day of the disappearance feature his car? Walter took the actual Kodak envelope out of the box, with the film negatives still inside, to make sure their memories weren't warping reality. The processing date, 2 days after the triplets vanished, was prominently stamped on the exterior. There was no denying it. The morning the boys disappeared, that picture was taken. It implied that the Cadillac shouldn't have been present, and someone had lied if it was. Or worst, there had been a secret. Evie's intuition sparked. Did Mr. Fielding notice anything that day if his car was present? Did he sneak back into town? Had he ever been interviewed by the police? Walter made an effort to remain composed and gave reasonable justifications, such as the possibility that the car belonged to someone else. Evie, however, wasn't persuaded. That was the only car of its kind in the neighborhood, and everyone knew everyone in those days. What if the inquiry had overlooked something, or someone, important? That thought lingered over the room like a rain cloud. Evie gripped the picture closely, her fingers shaking a little as they tucked the rest of the box away. She kept thinking that something that had been hidden for a long time had now been discovered, and that it had always been there. It was more than simply a picture, a breadcrumb, that is, and it hadn't been noticed for 30 years. The vibrant barn was a vivid picture straight out of a book. The children who now called this facility home created the vibrant paintings that adorned its walls. Inside, tiny tables were set up with creative supplies, including dried oats, twigs, colourful buttons, and tiny agricultural implements, all waiting for inquisitive hands to investigate. The world was designed to be happy, messy, safe, and healing. However, this was more than just a craft room for kids. It represented the farm's goal of re-establishing young people's lives by beginning with love and creativity. Ferdinand, the man in the barn, greeted them with a warmth that was more than courteous. It was intensely intimate. He was the result of Howard's vision, not merely a coordinator. He was reared here after being rescued as a youngster, and his life served as a living example of the farm's aim. His presence made everything Walter and Evie had witnessed seem more real. However, something pulled at the periphery of Evie's mind. She was unable to shake it. Too much for coincidence? Then she noticed it. She was stunned by a sketch that was hidden on the distant wall among the handcrafted collages and early scrawls. A vehicle. Not just any car, but a red Cadillac, embellished with tiny coloured rice grains and rendered with amazing precision. There was no mistaking the shape, the lengthy hood, the chrome accents. It was the Cadillac from the picture she had discovered at home. The artwork was not created by an adult. It was not a connection to the past. It was an artistic interpretation of a child's memories, and that added to its eerie quality. It was getting harder for Evie to ignore the coincidence. How could a child here, decades after Howard had left their town, have such a strong memory of a very particular car? In particular, that vehicle. The same one with her sons in the photo, the same one that, until lately, she had forgotten. What if it wasn't only a sketch? What if it was a piece of something much more profound? Howard had once taken great pride in the Cadillac. He retained it as a sign of something, maybe his identity, his status, or his past, and he seldom ever drove it. So why was it being drawn by a child? Or worse, had that kid been taken in it, or seen it, or rode in it? Evie's thoughts were racing as she stood motionless before the piece of art. The cordial greeting, the smiling employees, the well-executed charitable endeavor. All of a sudden it seemed like a veil, a skillfully constructed illusion meant to conceal something much more intricate. The Cadillac sketch caught Evie's attention. It was too well drawn to be a child's scrawl. It was notable for its uncanny familiarity as well as its craftsmanship. The artwork belonged to Ferdinand, the happy young man with a big smile and black locks. Evie's bones were stirred by something in his voice and the way he spoke with his hands. The chill that was creeping down her spine would not go away. She recognized this man as a former acquaintance. When she asked Ferdinand if he had siblings, her voice faltered a little. Walter's soft touch on her back made her aware that she might be going too far, but she had to know. Evie's heart skipped a beat as Ferdinand casually replied, "Yes, a brother, also on the grounds with Mr. Howard." "Two brothers. Are they the two bits of her soul that have gone missing?" Evie glanced back, her thoughts racing, as the pair thanked Ferdinand and moved on. She was dazed as she buckled up. That face, that drawing, that Cadillac. She was unable to let it go. Seeing how urgent she was, Walter offered to take her to the auction, which was just 20 minutes away. She made no hesitation. She firmly stated, "I need to speak with Mr. Howard." He was the only one who could answer her inquiries. A picture was taken on the day her boys disappeared. Howard's Cadillac can be seen in the distance. His friendly grin turned into a reticent, ambiguous one. His narrative abruptly changed. When he had left town was a mystery to him. Couldn't remember being close to their house. Yes, denial, but not in a convincing way. Beside her, Evie saw Walter tense. There was a problem. As they left, Evie lagged, just in time to overhear Howard urgently whispering into his phone, "Leave immediately! Get Diego here! Now!" Her blood froze. Alarmed, she caught up to Walter. Evie's gaze wasn't on the stage as they turned to see the kids perform. She was looking for him amid the crowd. A guy appeared from the stage's edge, moving quickly, practically running. The recognizable frame, the thick, black curls. Walter's sleeve was pulled by Evie. "He looks like Ferdinand, doesn't he?" Walter concurred. The man's smile and eyebrows in profile seemed eerily familiar. Howard's tent was reached by the man. He and Howard talked hurriedly and tensely from a distance. It was impossible to overlook the striking similarity. A dreadful optimism blossomed. Could Lucas and Noah be Ferdinand and this new man, Diego? Memories of Lucas's leadership, Noah's athletic grace, and Gabriel's tiny eyes came flooding back to Evie. Is it possible that the lads they lost are now men who go by different names? The truth slips out. Howard and Diego separated at the same moment and sped off toward the parking lot. A wave of panic swept through. For what reason were they departing? Evie desired to pursue them, to face reality. Walter, however, grounded her. Gabriel must also be in the area if they were correct, and those were their sons. They searched the fairgrounds, but they couldn't find a third man. An elder farmhand packed items back into the almost empty tent. He verified that Ferdinand and Diego were more than just brothers, something they were afraid to inquire about. They were triplets. What about the third? At the fair? No. He was employed at the private estate of Howard Fielding, somewhere off the map, a location they now had to locate. Like a gunshot, the phrase triplets rang in Evie and Walter's ears. Lucas, Noah, Gabriel, is it possible? Everything suggested it. However, Howard was now moving, and the third boy, possibly Gabriel, was concealed on a remote property. They were closer than ever to unraveling a riddle that had surrounded them for 30 years, and a dreadful reality was circling them. Walter and Evie sprint back to the charity farm where it all started, their hearts racing and their excitement pumping. When they dial 911, a flurry of police activity ensues. Evie connects with Detective Martinez as they travel along the dirt road, sharing their incredible find. It's peaceful on the farm, but it won't be for long. Flashing lights penetrate the dusk as Howard, Diego, and Ferdinand attempt to quickly leave. Their path is blocked by sheriff's deputies. To spectators, what appears to be a straightforward misunderstanding is anything but. Fearing that the authorities will allow Howard to elude them, Evie defies convention and enters the storm with her heart on her sleeve and her photo in hand. Howard is confronted by Evie in front of everyone. The pivotal moment is the picture she is holding. Unquestionable proof. A cherry red Cadillac lurking in the background, 3 young boys wearing matching overalls. Something in Ferdinand and Diego clicks as she holds up the picture. It dawns on you the deceptions they were living under started to fall apart. "That's us," says Ferdinand in a quiet but startling voice. The reality slams in like a tidal surge. They never experienced orphanhood. They were taken, manipulated, told a lie. Marco, their third sibling, is finally within reach but is still missing. The identities of Lucas, Noah, and Gabriel emerge from the mists for the first time. As the pieces come together, Howard Fielding is shackled despite his protests. His facade of altruism and volunteer work is no longer sufficient to shield him. When deputies raid the farm, they find the Cadillac, secret papers, and a drawer filled with false names. A career of dishonesty is exposed. Unsettling facts come to light during detectives' interviews with Ferdinand and Diego. Their early years were molded by pain rather than merely lies, the coercion, the discipline, the coerced compliance. A lifetime of controlling emotions under the pretext of paternal care. Nevertheless, they held on to a distorted loyalty until now, despite their shattered memories. A team of officers finds Marco, along with 8 other children, in various levels of trauma at Howard's private home. Marco is alive, disoriented, but safe. Howard's actions have far-reaching effects that go well beyond a single household. Finding Marco, however, represents the return of the last piece of Walter and Evie's hearts. Under chilly fluorescent lights back at the station, Evie reminisces on the day her boys disappeared without a trace, the darkest day of her life. A lovely afternoon that turned dark, a dependable teacher and a peaceful neighborhood. She kept looking. She continued to believe. The chilling reality is finally revealed by detectives. After losing his own wife and twin sons in a fire, Howard Fielding experienced a mental breakdown. He persuaded himself that the Marlowe triplets were his, so he didn't simply grab them. Power wasn't his only motivation. It was control, delusion, and obsession. The door to the interview room finally opens. 3 mature men stand at the doorway, drawn by an unseen thread of love and blood, but haunted by the past. Gabriel, Noah, and Lucas. Their parents get up, hesitant but overcome. A single embrace erases 30 years. As a family torn apart by malice starts to mend under the weight of truth, tears fall freely. Amidst the steel and paperwork of a small-town police station, a lovely thing occurs. For the first time in decades, a mother touches her boys' faces. A father holds them in his arms. Outside, the Texas sky is filled with blinking stars. Inside, a broken family dares to trust in miracles once more. After 30 years of silence, one mother's world changed with a single discovery, shocking, heartbreaking, and unforgettable. For more true stories like this, subscribe to our channel. Could you forgive the truth she uncovered? What would you have done? Let us know in the comments.